Now let me introduce the next two speakers, Mr. Sumit Kumar and Mr. Yuan, both from Dr. Reddy's. Mr. Sumit Kumar is the VP and Region Head for API Marketing and Sales at Dr. Reddy's. He has more than 20 years experience in pharma industry focusing on APIs and working with customers in Asia and Africa. Sumit is an MBA in International Business and has taken a postgraduate diploma course in intellectual property. Mr. Yuan, the sales director of Dr. Reddy's, rich in experience in pharma industry, focusing on APIs for China market. Mr. Cao graduated from China Pharmaceutical University with a master's degree of pharmacy administration. Their topic today is Indian manufacturers impacting global health and opportunities to cooperate with Chinese pharma. So Mr. Kumar, please.
Good afternoon, friends. I'm Sumit from Dr. Reddy's. Along with my colleague Yuan, today we are going to present one topic, Indian pharmaceuticals impacting healthcare globally and opportunities to collaborate with Chinese pharma. To start with, we will be discussing about the evolution of Indian pharma industry, where it stands today, and the way forward. Subsequently, my colleague Yuan will be taking you through opportunities to collaborate with Chinese pharma. As we all know, before 1970, India was primarily an import-driven industry, with majority of medicines coming from US and Europe. Subsequently, in 1970, Indian government brought change in the Indian Patents Act, which was basically recognizing only the process patent. It very significantly helped the growth of generic industry in India, which very significantly improved the accessibility and affordability of the medicines in India. Next, almost 2 to 3 decades, India achieved self-reliance, and also this low-cost products what India used to produce has been one of the critical element of healthcare industry across different countries. Subsequently, in 1999, India aligned the intellectual property regulations as per WTO, which basically enabled the CRAMS business and the discovery research business in a very significant way. Overall, now the companies have got critical mass, and many companies are now trying for some NCEs or some 505(b)(2) kind of formulations. If we deep dive into last 2 decades of Indian pharma industry, as you can see that with the change in patents law, which basically triggered significant FDI into Indian pharmaceutical space, which helps the CRAMS business, and also it also made Indian companies part of the innovators' drug discovery value chain. And I think this is one area where I think India has been picking up quite well. Beyond this, overall, the industry had been growing consistently. In between, there was a time because of this macro, say, economical issues, like a subprime crisis there was in US, which basically impacted the growth of the pharma industry in India because of its large exposure in US. Indian government on its part also brought regulations which basically enabled further growth of pharma industry, like the DPCO, which was basically a price control order, right, which was basically regulations controlling the prices of pharmaceutical product. It was replaced with a more progressive NPPA, what we call National Pharmaceutical Pricing Policy. Of late, there has been some concern coming from, say many overall from the generic industry because of the profitability, which is largely driven by the price erosion in US. And the generic industry in India right now is trying to cope with that. Overall, if you see the overall the industry size of say $40 billion plus, and exports according to almost 50% of this value. US is contributing almost 1/3 of the entire exports of pharmaceutical preparation from India. Subsequently, Europe, followed by Africa, Brazil, and Russia and CIS countries. So these are some of the major geographies where Indian exports is headed in a big way. In terms of domestic industry, say out of a size of say 21 billion US dollars, the almost 80% of this generic industry or say this industry, pharma industry in India, is being serviced by Indian generic industries and the balance 20% by innovator companies. In terms of therapy, anti-infectives, cardiovascular, diabetology, NGI are the largest therapies in India. Beyond this, if you see, like in terms of, say, if you consider, say, US or Europe, say in India, like out of 10, top 4, say, out of say, 10, almost 4 companies are basically, 4 generic companies are from India. And also, if you see in WHO, India contributes in the biggest way in terms of supply of vaccines. Overall, if you see in terms of say the market size of say $20 billion, while in terms of value it may be around 2% of the global pharma market, but in terms of volume, it is almost 20%. So India consumes 20% of the world pharmaceutical volume, and which contributes a value of 2%. It basically indicates the fierce competitive scenario in India. And overall, the industry growth is propelled by multiple enabling factors. A few of them are like the government's insurance policy, or the universal coverage what the government brought for people. Also, like the improvement in healthcare infrastructure, also in some way like some life child diseases, some pollution issues, large population. So these are things which basically overall is expected to drive the Indian pharma industry. Overall, once I say Indian pharmaceutical industry, it can be considered as a pharmaceutical basket for the world, right? And it provides quite cost-effective solutions to patients. If you see, like in US and European exports from Indian generics, overall, it is able to meet the strict regulatory and quality requirements of these countries. And in many cases, the pricing being offered by Indian generics is less than 1% of the innovator prices. But friends, India is not about cost, not only about cost, I would say, because Indian generics have demonstrated developing very complex generics and biosimilars in a big way. Like say, I will say from Dr. Reddy's table, we have say Fondaparinux we developed almost like a long time back, which and Dr. Reddy's and it's one of the most complex small molecule. Also, we developed say a product like say rituximab, which was the first biosimilar in the world for this product. And along with our partner, we also developed and commercialized liposomal doxorubicin. Overall, I think in terms of say complex products, Indian generics has been trying to significantly contribute. Also, Indian generics has been trying to work very aggressively on the 505(b)(2) projects or products, which basically meets the unmet needs of the patient. Maybe a couple of examples I will give here. Say in case of Dr. Reddy's, for sumatriptan, we have developed a nasal spray. Now, sumatriptan, as we all know, that the overall the tablet, it has some concern in terms of say slower onset, in terms of tolerability issues or adverse effects. In case of nasal spray, these concerns are broadly taken care of or addressed, right? And it's a big help to customers or consumers. In BRIC countries, again, the requirements are quite stringent, and the regulations also like it is quite mature. Regulations also are quite mature. So as a country, or say Indian generics is trying to learn the requirements and trying to implement and meet those requirements to be a meaningful player in these countries, right? So like either say Russia or say Brazil, already like Indian companies are having meaningful play. In case of China, I can proudly say that Dr. Reddy's is one of the first Indian generic to have partnered or say formed a joint venture almost 20 years back, which is still running successfully and growing from strength to strength, which is also like I will say the most successful joint venture for generics in China. Beyond this, for other emerging markets, I think I think the large supplies to WHO for the vaccines, I think it goes everywhere basically in the world, like, uh, especially the many other emerging markets. Also, India has been, I will say, the largest contributor to ARVs, to anti-malarials and anti-TB product supplies. Also, friends, as we know that the oncology products typically are considered to be a very, I will say, very expensive therapy, like from the patient's point of view. I think most of the generic companies, they are in India, they have basically expanded the generic portfolio of oncology products at a fraction of cost, which is basically making this product accessible in many countries at a fraction of cost, and a great help to, say, communities in terms of reducing the cost of therapy. Overall, in terms of, say, enablers, if you see, which is helping Indian pharma to grow, human resources is turning out to be the key thing. If you see, like in terms of pharmacy, there are 100,000 pharmacy graduates joining the pharma workforce every year. We have a similar number of, say, chemistry graduates and a very high number of chemical engineers and biotech professionals. So overall, if you see this kind of, say, inflow of workforce into pharma industry is helping the industry also grow meaningfully. Also, I think what we call reverse brain drain, like the students or people who went to, say overseas, especially US and European countries, they studied there, worked for some time, and then for some reasons they decided to come back to India. Basically, these are people who have significantly helped in terms of like building the ecosystem of innovation in Indian pharma industry. The second part can be the global compliance and quality requirements. As we all know that India has been exporting the APIs and the formulations since last almost 30 years, the last 3 decades. It has also helped like Indian generics to understand or engage with the agencies to understand their requirement of regulatory or customers' requirement on quality. So, and they have been trying to learn and implement these things over a period of time. These things are basically evolving. These things are evolving, and that the industry is learning and implementing these things. So overall, it has now given, I would say, a lot of credibility to the Indian generics in terms of meeting those requirements consistently. If you see, like in the number of API manufacturing units registered in like in FDA, is almost like 393. For formulations, almost 279 FDA facilities are registered with US FDA. 105 R&D centers, and 600 plus manufacturing units are compliant to EU requirements. So which speaks about the volume, basically, or say the scale at which the Indian generics have been operating and meeting the requirements of these countries. Also, Indian generics also, they realize that I think while I think it's good to invest more on the R&D, because it is going to be the pharma industry is basically a knowledge-driven industry, and R&D is going to play more and more meaningful role as we move forward. So there has been consistent, or say, sustained investment by the companies, which has helped companies to basically strengthen their say portfolio and think for something beyond me-too products to some complex generics. Now you can see in many of the bigger, I think many of the Indian generic players, you can see that a significant portfolio of the products are not me-too. They are basically, it is something differentiated formulations, what we call, for biosimilars. There has been some challenges and uncertainties with which the Indian pharma industry is definitely facing. Right? The first we can consider as the compliance and the approvals part. You might have seen in last few years, there had been multiple issues, or I'll say multiple instances where FDA gave 483 or even import alert to many companies. I think the industry is also trying to learn the evolving expectations and trying to learn those things. And they're also trying to automate the systems, because the manual interventions are being reduced, say, especially in quality functions or wherever the data is there. some level of automation, or automation helps in terms of ensuring more transparency and data integrity. So companies have been investing very significantly there in terms of building the IT infrastructure or the softwares to ensure the support of, say, to the industry, right? And they are able to meet the requirements in a more consistent and sustained way. So which is also helping the industry a lot. Then comes the second challenge possibly is, if you see the top 20 molecules today, I think the large molecules, basically the large molecules or the biological products, they are having quite meaningful portion of all let's say the pharma business. Right? So for a smaller opportunities, or a smaller molecules, it is turning out to be a challenge, and especially because of the price erosion, which is leading to, or say, compounding the challenges. Companies have been, and there has been some price erosion in US and Europe. So for that reason, companies have been trying to expand their footprint across geographies. If you see Indian generics, they have been working very aggressively beyond US and Europe to develop their market or to expand the footprint, which can possibly help them hedge against the possible risk on the profitability because of all these changes. The future of Indian pharma industry, I think there can be like two distinct models, right? Where the companies have been realizing that now it is going to be either niche capabilities, or say the strength in innovation and technology play, or cost play, or there can be a hybrid, definitely a single company can have both. So companies have been working quite say meaningfully on innovation and technology play. They have been doing a lot of investment in terms of building the technology platforms, or building or acquiring the technology platforms, which can help them to offer, say, complex products or biosimilars or differentiated formulations. And a lot of activity they have been doing. The second part comes on the backward integration or the cost play, where companies have been significantly investing on the capacity and process excellence, which basically is able to help them to, to improve the cost, and also it will also help them to ensure better compliance and, say, more sustainable, or say more consistent supplies to offer the better value proposition to the customers. So these are, friends, few things about the future of Indian pharma industry. Now I will request my colleague Yuan to discuss about the collaboration opportunities with Chinese pharma. Yeah, thank you.
大家好，首先自我介绍一下，我叫曹源。
Hello everyone, I would like to introduce myself. I'm Chao Yuan. I have working in Dr. Reddy for 6 years, and I've get involved in the market promotion and sales for our products. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity here. So follow up with the presentation from Sumit Kumar, my boss. I would like to share with you collaboration opportunities with Chinese pharmaceutical industry. It's my personal opinion, some food for reference. When we talk about the competitions between India and China, we know it's a competition between two giant countries. Pharmaceutical companies in global market have a comprehensive competitions in intermediates and APIs. In past few years, India has been promoting their products and APIs in China, and I have talked with many companies of this kind, and I believe there are still a lot of opportunities for cooperation between the two countries. I would like to divide them into two aspects. First of all, what China can bring to India. First of all, for KSM, intermediates, and APIs, what are these opportunities for cooperation? In past years, India has always been the #1 destination of export. We can see this slide, and the intermediates and APIs procured from China by India accounts for more than 2/3. And this trend, I believe, would not change in next few years, though limited by the pressures from environmental protection in China. There was a shortage, and India companies were being very proactive, thinking about the market promotion and manufacturing locally, and while being influenced by the pandemic now, as well as it takes time for setting up facilities, I don't think this trend will change in a short period of time. And then the opportunities for cooperation between the two countries. We have seen Chinese and pharma companies have their advantages in R&D. In the past 5 to 8 years, there's have been continuously newly approved drugs launched in the market, and we see the publicity and announcement, and more categories have been launched with patents, with cooperations with South Korea or other countries. And we haven't cooperated with Indian companies yet, but I believe with the increased demand from Indian market, there will be opportunities for unauthorized cooperations in overseas market.
The third part is in terms of patent. Now we are ramping. We know that there are so many patents applied in China and India about the process, R&D, and formulation, etc. We know that we can start collaboration with those generic farms factories in India in terms of the patent. We know that there are some Chinese enterprises that are negotiating with the counterparts in India about the technologies, etc. This is about the China enterprises, the benefits they can provide for India counterparts. The second part is about what benefits can Indian enterprises bring for Chinese counterparts. About the patent, we know that we are doing patent reform in China. We have a new patent law in China. We have the patent remuneration, the compensation, and the vacancy policy, and about the implementation policy in China. So in this way, I think that for Indian enterprises, in terms of patent challenges, we can seek collaborations in such background. And we know Indian enterprises are very experienced in this. For example, in US and the Europe countries, they have so many cases of successfully challenging the patent cases. There are also, for the Chinese enterprises, we can address the patent challenges better with the help of and support from Indian counterparts. So, and you can see we also have the same goal, and in some part of the categories, we can seek many corporations. The second part is about the international market collaboration. I believe that the two countries can also have a potential of collaboration. And we know Indian enterprises are leading ahead of us in terms of international market exploration, in terms of the numbers and the registrations in overseas countries. And we also find that many enterprises, they have the international strategy, they have the registration application in both China and the US, and even in a third country. And we can support each other in terms of production. So I believe that from other Indian factories, they can also provide such support and collaboration basis. The third point is about some special APIs for development. The Indian enterprises are quite efficient in this. This can also support the Chinese enterprises, especially in API development capabilities. And also for those low efficiency factories in China, they can seek a collaboration to do a joint application to help them to accelerate the development process. And also for some old API categories, we can introduce this from India to China to break such a monopoly in some countries in local market. Last point is about IT collaboration. We know India is very strong in IT development. So in technology, we can seek collaborations to accelerate the efficiency of R&D. And also for our company, we are also doing the digitalized upgrade, like our API offloading. We have developed a B2C digital platform, and on this platform, our clients can search the information and download the product information, and they can also find some regulation documents and or propose a sample request. And also in the future, we have an order placement system in the future to go live, to follow up with the order and the after sales service, and to improve the entire customer satisfaction level. So in IT aspect, I believe the two countries can find a lot of potential collaboration opportunities. So this is all of my presentation. Thank you very much for listening.